Okay. So today we're talking about leadership beyond titles, how high impact professionals drive results without formal authority. Of course, we all know that titles don't drive results. It's actually influence that does this. And this is part of what we're going to be looking into in today's masterclass. So this session is just going to be for 45 minutes. And if it breaks, once we're done with the 45 minutes, because the free Zoom, whatever, then you just log on to the second link that I already sent via mail. So please, if you don't have that, let me know in the comment section and I will send that to you as well. So moving on, leadership beyond titles. My name is Dr. Ishoma Elora Ona. I am an L&D, that is Learning and Development Consultant, trainer, and of course, I do quite a number of things, but I'll be the one hosting today's session. And for those just joining, I welcome you once again to this masterclass. This will be the first of very many more sessions that we'll be having this year. My GM, Mr. Patrick, I see you, you're welcome. Goodness, I see you, you are welcome. So, just want to be sure. So what is the reality about leadership? The truth is, most people miss some very, very important things. They say, oh, when I get the title, I will be able to change things. I will be able to influence decisions. So many things are going wrong in Nigeria. So many things are going on in the workforce. So many things are going wrong around the world. And it's just that I don't have that level of authority. I don't have that level of power. But once I become the governor of Lagos State, I'll be able to change things. Once I become the MD of my organization, I will be able to change these policies that are affecting people. Once I become the president of Nigeria, there will be free food for everyone. No one needs to go to work again. But I can tell you something. Not everybody is going to be able to achieve the position of leadership. Most professionals, and not even just professionals, people even after the professional workplace believe that if you are not someone, you cannot influence anything, you cannot change anything. But the reality is that many people with titles still end up ignored. Now, of course, we're not trying to talk about having power here. No, there's the difference between having the political power, the financial power to be able to make a difference. But you know that you can have financial power, right, and be influencing things underground, but yet you are not the recognized leader per se. I'm sure we've seen many situations or many, let me use the organizations as an example, where a secretary or an executive assistant or a security guard, someone that you feel is of little or no importance, is moving things and shaking things. Please, I'd like this session to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions to ask or anything to contribute, please feel free to do so, to just signify and join in the conversation. So many people, even who have titles, end up becoming sometimes what we call figurehead leaders. They are just there, but they are not the real people calling the shots. So at the end of the day, you now find out that it is people that you even least expect or people that you even may know that are actually making those decisions and pushing the needle. So many without titles drive decisions. And that's why when you find yourself in some precarious situations where you need to maybe get a contract, sign a deal, change an executive management decision, the first question you need to ask yourself is, who are the decision makers? And I'm not talking about the obvious decision makers. I'm talking about those that are the ones that have the listening ears, those that whisper, those that have the influence to actually change decisions. So in this case, influence is not given. It's not something that you can stand up in the morning and say, I want to be able to influence decisions, I want to be able to change things. It is my right. I want that power. No, it is built. And it's not just built in one day, it is built over time. So looking at the case of professionals, decisions are not driven by hierarchy alone. And as I earlier mentioned, you can see different situations where there's an executive director, there's a managing director, there's a manager, and at the end of the day, they may just be sitting on that position to fill in the space of an organogram only. They may not be actually making those decisions. So the executive reality here is that in most organizations, decisions are not driven by hierarchy alone. Authority does not guarantee execution. And the most critical outcomes are shaped before formal approval. So this brings to mind that influence, not title, determines what gets done. So I want to ask a question. I want to throw it to the house. Have you found yourself in a situation where maybe in your organization, probably past organization, present organization, or other places, you probably want to interact with people or get something done, and you find out that the decision makers are the people you least expect? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where somebody who has the title is not actually the decision maker? Can anybody share their experience? Anyone? Can anyone share their experience where you found yourself in a situation where who you thought was the decision maker was not? Please go ahead, sir. Yes, Mr. Jamil.
Okay, yes. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Ish. Yes, I've actually gone through a particular process where I was trying to do a kind of a major sales to a particular firm who are into the entertainment industry. And I have been trying to get the approval from the CEO. And I've been on him for very long. And I realized that the approval process was actually dragging. And later, when I was able to get in touch with one of his staff, who is what's it called, the supervisor on the shop floor, I realized that it is these guys that will determine what will happen. So when I spoke with them, I made them realize what they stand to gain from my products. In less than a month, they started using the product. In fact, the truth of the matter was that they were actually using a competitor's product before mine. And those guys kept telling the boss that they're not finding it comfortable, that it's not, it's really, that it's affecting their job. And because what the man wanted was performance, at the end of the day, he bent. He told them, okay, go ahead and call whoever you feel would deliver what you want. And believe me, because I've also been discussing with those guys. They just called me, and the thing was it was sealed within a week. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, sir. That was a very, very practical example. And of course, I'll share also an experience. I also had something pretty similar to that. I remember a few years back, I was working with an organization, and they are into investment immigration, more like a wealth management organization. And I was trying to seal the deal as well. I was talking to the owner, so it's usually a program that the package usually is for families. So I was talking to the husband, I was talking, because as far as I was concerned, he had the money, right? And of course, based on my own position and based on his own position as the MD CEO of his company, I believed that he had the final say. I pitched, I spoke my English, I spoke my grammar. I had a very wonderful, in my mind, a very wonderful presentation. It was tight. You know, to me, I felt I hit the nail on the head. He applauded me. He said, "Oh, wonderful. I love it. This um, wealth management package is going to make a lot of sense for me and my family." And okay, so send me the quotation, the invoice, you know, and I gave my supervisor the feedback. Don't worry, we're getting this money. In fact, 24 hours is too much. In the next 2, 3 hours, this man is going to make a down payment. I was excited. And I waited. 24 hours went by, no feedback. 48 hours went by, no feedback. And that was how it kept dragging till it extended to over a month. And the response I kept getting was, "I'll get back to you." If you've ever been in sales, or if you've ever been in a position where you are trying to convince maybe management or someone else, you know, to take on a particular project or buy something, the worst phrase you ever hear is, "I will get back to you." I hate that phrase more than anything. And I kept hearing that. And I believed that this man has the authority. I believe that his authority guaranteed that the deal will be executed in no time. However, what I didn't realize was I had the perception that he had the authority based on hierarchy. He'd be the MD of the company. But guess who had the decision-making power? It was his wife. His wife was the one that had the power to give that formal approval. Now, this is applicable on so many levels in professional environments. I'm sure some of you would have had cases where you've had, you know, deliverables expected of you that you're submitting to your supervisor, or even not just supervisor, even as business owners. You have things that you're trying to pursue, and you find out that whoever you assumed was going to have that decision-making power actually didn't have it. What you need to understand is that influence is not just about how highly placed you are. Even if, yes, it's a very important factor, because you know your presentation has to be okay, your packaging, as we call it, has to be good, you have to be positioned properly, brand wise, intellectually wise, and whatever way that is necessary. But does your influence, the question is, the influence you have now, I want to ask yourself, the influence you have now, can it drive decisions in your circle? Do you have the influence to shape conversations? Do you even know the people who are the real influencers? And it's not just by designer outfits alone or the capacity to speak good English. Do you even know those that shape the conversations that can affect your life negatively or positively? Do you have any idea in your space, in your industry, in your organization, in the people you deal with day to day, who the decision drivers are? And in your capacity currently, can you deliver results based on the level of influence that you have? These are very critical questions that you need to ask yourself. Now, I've seen that many capable professionals, you know, have strong ideas. They're so brilliant. I have a mentee. He's a banker. I happen to be one of the CIBN mentors. So they assigned about 2 or 3 mentees to me. So I had a session with one of them last week, Sunday. And I asked him, what exactly do you want to achieve in your career? Because from what he told me, he's been in the banking sector for around 11, 12 years. But originally, he's an engineer. So I was like, wow, engineer in banking. How come about? Now, funny enough, I studied philosophy. So, I mean, it's a very funny question. It's like the kettle calling the pot black. I also studied philosophy and found myself in banking. That was how I started my own corporate career. When I was interested, I'm always intrigued when I see people who study one thing and find themselves in another position. And of course, for somebody who has been in the banking sector or any other profession for over a decade, you're already considered a professional in that particular space, in that particular niche. And he gave me loads and loads of fantastic ideas. I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to achieve this. I've not been promoted in 7 years. I'm doing so much, I'm underpaid. Banking is shege. I mean, there's no industry that is not even shege right now in Nigeria. Everywhere it's just shege up and down, right? So he had so many strong ideas. He even understands, I threw a few questions at him based on my own previous knowledge about his particular job function, and he had a good grip, on the operational movements. He had, I would say, a fairly good capacity in his own right. But the problem is your strong ideas. Who even knows you have an idea where you are working? Who knows you have an idea within your space? And it's not just to have an idea. How viable is this idea? How strong is this idea? How productive is this idea? This idea, if it is actualized, can it actually drive results in terms of productivity, profitability, improvements in capacity to your organization, of course, first of all, to even your unit or your department where you are working. In the areas of where you are known as, okay, you are the manager of this, you are the head of that, what is your level of capacity as at now? Is it up to par? Is it what is expected of somebody holding that title or position? Because we have various people that have titles and they're not justifying even the titles that they have. So because they're not justifying the titles they have, they do not have any level of influence. Same way we have professionals who do not even understand the operational gaps where they are. Because if you don't understand the operational gaps, if you don't understand the problem areas, if you lack strong ideas or even any idea at all, if you lack visibility, nobody knows what you're capable of. Only you knows what. I have people that they're so intelligent, but they're intelligent in their mind only. They don't speak up in meetings. And what I mean speak up in meetings, I don't mean be a nuisance, interrupting your boss when he's speaking or interrupting people during meetings. I mean constructive speech. Those ideas, have you been able to phrase them to a point where people are willing to always listen to you when you open your mouth to speak? Because that is the power of influence. And this is the problem many professionals have. Are you someone that when people are sitting, they would want to reach out to you to run ideas by you, either within your organization, within your department, or even outside it? When these conversations happen, do they insist you must be in the room when the conversations are happening? Or even when you are not in the room, when these conversations happen, do statements like, oh, I wish so and so person was here so we can find out his opinion or her opinion. How impactful are you when you are in the presence of people? Are you the type that when you step into the room, light follows you? And I'm not speaking spiritual here. I'm just basically making it as logical as possible. There are people that you may have worked with in your career, past or current, where once they step into a room, people want to listen to what they have to say. Are you positioned as that kind of person? So the question you also need to ask yourself is, to be able to gain influence, you must first of all ask yourself, what level of impact do I currently have as at today, as at now? So if you are lacking strong ideas, if you don't understand operational gaps or the gaps within your space, or even you need to be interested in what is even happening in other places, what level of capacity or knowledge do you have? And I mean a critical evaluation of yourself as at date. Are you someone that is a problem solver? Are you someone that sees opportunities for what they are clearly? If you're someone that anytime people have conversations with you, the only thing you ever notice is problems, you will not have any level of influence. You must be seen as a solution provider. What are those things said about you behind closed doors? Influence is not by title, I repeat. It's not by being a manager, head of this, GM of that, group head of that. No, it's about the quality of conversations you have with people, the quality of relationships you have horizontally and vertically. And when I mean horizontally and vertically, the relationship you have with the leaders or the leadership, and the relationship you have with your peers. The relationship you also have with your subordinates, people that are supposed to look up to you. The opportunities that you create out of problems. Are you the type that you have ideas, but your ideas never gain traction? Once they start with your idea, it just flops almost immediately because you've not thought it through. You just want to be heard. You just want to be seen. But yet, you do not have that quality of depth. These are the things you need to ask. And that is the reason why some people get pulled into conversations that is even way above their level, not because they are low, but because their contribution is valuable. I've found myself in situations where people want to make decisions and they call me first. It's not to brag, but it's just the reality, because you must build your capacity to that level. Do you have the skill sets, soft skills, to position yourself as an influencer in your organization and in your space? Or you are waiting till you are promoted to become MD of the organization, or you are waiting till you are promoted to become head of the department? And I'm not preaching usurping anybody. I'm not preaching scheming or plotting to push anyone out of their position. I'm talking about building your capacity to a point where you can be considered someone that people need to hear. What is the extent of your impact? How full is your impact? Is it limited? Right? Is your impact limited, or is it expanding? And if it's not expanding, how fast is it expanding? So it's not just about capability alone, because you may have the capacity, you may be capable on the job, but your positioning, you are speaking in the wrong rooms and speaking at the wrong time. So these are questions you need to also ask yourself. Now, the shift here is to move into executive thinking. When I mean executive thinking, it's not about waiting, like I said, to become an MD or someone of leadership, or to say, oh, I remember years ago when I was in the bank, I'm no longer there now. And at a time, I was head of operations. Now, if you understand the banking hierarchy, you have things like the teller, the funds transfer, the, what do they call it now? The customer service, the cash officer. There's just various departments under the head of operations. And I remember that before I became a head of operations, I had supervisors that, when I mean supervisors, I mean head of operations, male and female in different branches, that would call me when they're having one or two operational issues. This happened before I even became head of operations. And in my time, before you become head of operations, you will be what they call a relief head of operation, meaning that if any head of operation is on leave, that they do it to test run you, to see if you have the capacity to eventually become a full head of operations, where they eventually give you your own branch. So then the custom was, once the head of operations is on leave, you will go and relieve them, maybe 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 month, however long they are on leave. And then, so the custom then was, you could be a relief head of operations for 2 to 3 years. They're still technically a head of a small unit, but your job would just be to jump from one branch to the other. When it got to my turn, I said, no, in terms of career progression, this is not going to help me, because I'm neither here nor there. I don't want to be a relief head of operations for 3 years, because it's like a portfolio that they've given you, but it does not belong to you. So I started building capacity. I started shifting my thinking. I started representing myself as if I was head of operations. I did not start calling myself head of operations. I did start introducing myself as HOP. But I started putting myself in the shoes. So if I'm going to make a decision, how would a standard HOP address this issue? How would a standard HOP address this issue? And when I had that mind shift, when I moved into that executive thinking, at least for that level, I found out that security guards were bringing, I found out that security guards were bringing problems to me, cleaners were bringing issues to me, people from other units were bringing issues to me. So what I'm talking about here is average thinking. Get out of that average thinking of, I need authority to drive results. Move into that thinking of, I will position ideas in a way that drives decisions and actions. This is how a leader thinks. You don't need to wait for that position all you need to do is to shift your thinking. So leadership begins with how you think and not your title. Okay? That is what is so, so important. How you think and not your title. Very, very important. So if anybody tells you, oh, you have to be at a certain level before you can start making strategic decisions, no. You need to first of all shift your thinking, because even if you are given that leadership position, you may most likely not even be able to act up to full capacity, right? Now, what influence really is the ability to shape decisions, align stakeholders, and drive outcomes without relying on authority. It requires you to be able to think strategically. It requires you to be aware of the business, and it requires you to be intentional about communication and, of course, the relationships you have with people. Now, a critical question is how decisions are really made. Before decisions are approved, what conversations do you have informally? I mean, with your colleagues, with your peers. We spoke about horizontal and vertical relationships. What informal conversations do you have? Are you only talking about Obule when you are discussing with your colleagues? Are you only discussing about the latest club to visit? And I'm not saying it's wrong to let your hair down and enjoy yourself. But if you want to be considered for leadership, or you are in leadership and you want to be taken seriously, you need to be intentional about the conversations you have with your peers and with your superiors. Of course, have a very clear understanding on boundaries, right? Because once you start having very critical and strategic informal conversations, that's not to say you shouldn't have light conversations, but let there be a level of intentionality in your conversations. You find out that opinions are already being shaped about you. People shape opinions about you more from informal communication than formal communication. So once you start having conversations with people within your space, and please be intentional about this, not just in your organization or professional space, but outside that. Because people will only address you how they perceive you. If people believe you are not a serious person, you probably will not be considered for anything serious. Stakeholders always align. Discussions are always had behind closed doors. Are you going to be at any point considered to be someone to have a conversation, a critical and strategic conversation behind closed doors? So by the time a decision or announcement is made, you will not, do you know that times there are people that are in organizations, they never know anything happening until fire has burnt the whole place down. I was once like that. But if you position yourself strategically in combination with your capacity, because you can't position without capacity. So you must have capacity and then position yourself strategically. That is when you start doing what we call real influencing, even without you being a leader. So let's imagine we are looking at a scenario here. There's a leadership meeting and a discussion is being had. And I mean, a very wrong thing would be to say, oh, we should improve our onboarding process. That is very vague. Now we're talking about communication here, how the right way to communicate and speak as a leader, even if you are not given that leadership position. While another leader will say our onboarding delays are affecting customer retention, 1, increasing operational efficiencies, 2. If we restructure this process, we can improve turnaround time and reduce pressure on the team. Now, with this kind of conversation, with what this second leader said, you will see that there will be an immediate engagement. Why? Because this person's conversation or response to the issue of a poor onboarding process is very logical. If you say, oh, we need to improve on our onboarding process, we need to improve on how we manage our clients, we need to improve on how we grow revenue, we need to improve on customer retention, we need to improve on our turnaround time. Those are vague statements. Those are not the way a leader speaks. You must be able to apply the right kind of context to your speech and your communication. When you state an idea, frame it properly. So look at the little things that was mentioned here: retention, increasing operational efficiencies, and restructuring. This is just a typical example of the kind of things you should be saying. So not just vague language just because you want your voice to be heard, not just vague language because you want your voice to be heard, but structural communication. Our onboarding delays are affecting customer retention and increasing operational inefficiencies. If we restructure this process, we can improve turnaround time and reduce pressure on the team. That is how to speak like a leader. Structure what you say. Don't just say it because you feel like saying it. So a critical analysis of this is, like I've already explained, we should improve our onboarding process is general. It's not measurable, shows no measurable impact, and there's no sense of urgency. At executive level, at leadership level, whether you are, and this is to you, even if you are not given a managerial position, you should start seeing yourself as a leader. Executives respond to impact. They don't respond to generality. So you must know how to speak in such a way that your speech is impactful. And this is why when the executive version of that comment clearly stated here shows that you are aware of a clear business impact, you are aware of the outcome that needs to be driven, and your statement shows that you are action oriented. These are the kind of people that management starts looking at as people that can influence. Now, why do ideas fail at senior level? We are running out of time. So once this ends, please log on to the second Zoom link and then we continue from there. So why do ideas fail at senior level? Lack of business framing. Ideas are shared without context. I've spoken about that. The idea does not connect to measurable results. It just looks like you just said it for saying sake. Poor stakeholder alignment. You need to understand the stakeholders. So in your organization, who are the stakeholders? Identify the decision makers. Understand their language, understand their train of thought, understand the problem points, the pain points, so that you can now craft out solutions in a very strategic manner. So when discussions are being made, you'll be given a seat at the table because they see you as a strategic person. Now, this can happen at every early level, whether you are customer service, whether you are a teller, whatever level that you are. Because if you have a weak positioning and your idea is not measurable, trust me, you will not be given a seat at the table. So to operate at a high level, you need clarity, you need credibility, you need connection, you need the ability to communicate, and you need consistency. For a lot of people, communication is the major problem. So many people have the qualities of being a leader, but they lack the ability to communicate their leadership skills. They lack the ability to communicate their credibility and their value. They lack the ability to communicate clarity as to the ideas that they are bringing to the table. And of course, they lack consistency. Today, they are seen as top-notch, tomorrow. So whatever you position yourself as, you must be consistent. If you're positioning yourself as a strategic leader, you can't be a strategic leader on Monday, and then on Tuesday, you're not a strategic leader, on Wednesday. And when I mean strategic leader, I'm not talking about the position. I'm not talking about the title. But this basically is the foundation of what you need to understand. So I'm going to end this session now. And in about a few minutes, it's 10:48 to be exact, we're going to continue with the next session. My apologies because we are using the free Zoom, so it gives me only 45 minutes, right? So once it goes off, like I said, 10:48, you log on to the second link and then we continue from there. So communication is a problem. So you need to audit yourself. What are your communication skills? If you can't audit yourself, please ask people around you in your organization or even in your environment or people close to you, please, can you grade my communication skills? Can you grade my ability to show clarity on my ideas?